All right. Good evening. Let's get into it here. We've got some interesting information coming out. The border czar, Tom Homan, threatens military action against the Mexican cartels if necessary. So let's take a look at what he's talking about here on this news clip.
This is Carl. He never really thought much of his credit scores. Well, until he got credit
Well,
karma.
while we're waiting for this ad
By putting in the
to
work
end,
to improve his scores, he got access to a better
hope
credit
you guys
card.
are having a
And
wonderful
that's so
day.
much he liked. Ooh, is that saffron sunrise? And when it came time to
And
buy
we
a
should
home
be
of his
getting
own,
into this in
Credit Karma
just
helped him
a
take things to
moment.
the next level. Just in time. Intuit Credit Karma. Download the Money app where your hard work pays off.
300,000 deportations a year. He put child asylum seekers in jail like conditions, and he was also called the deporter-in-chief by Latino activist groups.
We're not talking about President Trump. We're actually talking about President Barack Obama. However, both presidents had something in common. Tom Homan, a cop, Border Patrol agent, and the man tasked to create the agency we now know as ICE. He writes in his memoir why illegal immigration should not be a partisan issue. He also supports the family separation policy, something he says is not about punishment, but about consequences. So while the country braces for the sweeping changes for immigrants in this country, Tom Homan says he's just getting started. Border czar Tom Homan joining us now. Good to see you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the raids that we've been reporting on, the initial phase, all about going in for those criminals, the violent criminals. Now I'm reading about car washes, going after certain businesses, arrests being made. If you're an illegal immigrant, you're out of there. So tell us exactly how many of these arrests actually involve people with criminal records other than illegal entry.
Look, I'm looking at the numbers this morning. We're about 14,000 arrests, and about 76% of them are criminals. That's the target of the operation, right? But where the collaterals come, the collateral arrests happen when we're looking for the bad guy, and we find others with them. And we have told ICE officers they're going to enforce the law. Unlike the last administration, we're not telling ICE agents, ignore the oath you took, ignore the immigration law. Your immigration officers enforce those laws. And here's a problem. I would love to arrest a bad guy in a city or county jail. But in sanctuary cities, we don't have access. So they're going to release a public safety threat back into the community, which I think is foolish. Puts the community at risk, puts our officers at risk, and puts the alien at risk, because anything can happen on street arrest. So if sanctuary cities want to force me in the communities, find a bad guy, that's what we'll do. And when we find a bad guy, many times with others. If they're in the country legally, they're coming too.
Let me ask you about the numbers. It's been reported that you've got a goal of 1,500 arrests per day. Are you hitting that? Is there pressure to reach that goal, to get the numbers up?
I don't have a quota. I don't have a goal. I want to arrest as many as we can arrest.
So there's no word from the White House, we need more numbers.
I have sent no quota out there, but I've told ICE, I was asked a question this morning, are you happy with the number of ICE arrests? No, I'm not. We need to do more. We got over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction. So 500 a day, no, it's not good enough. We need to find these people and take them off the street.
You talk about taking down the violent criminals, the gang members, but then the illegal immigrants at places like the car washes and other businesses. What's your message to businesses if they have these folks working for them right now?
Well, I think I said from day one, the president's been clear. We're concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. But if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table, but you're not going to be a priority. But I'm sure the car wash, I'm not familiar with that operation, but I'm sure they're looking for a criminal, and they didn't find, they found others. But worksite enforcement is coming back. And why? Because number one, a lot of the employers will employ illegal alien. No one hires an illegal alien out of the goodness of their heart. They hire them because they work them hard to pay them, unless they undercut the competition as U.S. citizen employees. But most importantly, what do we find most victims of trafficking? Work sites. They have to pay the cartels off. They force them in labor situations, overwork them, abuse them. So many victims of trafficking are found at work sites. So that's another reason why we're doing worksite enforcement operations.
So during the campaign, President Trump talked about going after hardened criminals, right? The worst of the worst. Is that really who you're finding right now? The Washington Post we were just talking has a story about a man who's been in the country 24 years. He's got 4 children here. Works at a chicken processing plant, which, sometimes get hard up for labor. And he had one conviction of driving without a license, and he's now being deported. Is that really what you want to do?
Two things. The priority right now is public safety threats and national security threats. And everybody we go to arrest, when we arrest a public safety threat, we know exactly who we're looking for, more or less where we're likely to find them, and other information we have is criminal history, we have his immigration history. These are planned enforcement operation. It's not a sweep. We're not going through the neighborhood looking for people different than us. These are well-planned, investigated leads. Then we go out and look for the person we're looking for. But that person just messaged, is in the country illegally?
Yeah.
He shouldn't be here.
He's got 4 kids. He's working.
If we want to send a message to the whole world, it's okay to enter the country illegally. It's a crime, but don't worry about it. Hide out long enough to have a U.S. citizen child, you're immune. If that's the message we send to the whole world, they're going to keep entering this country illegally. More aliens will die making that journey. You'll keep overwhelming the Border Patrol. When the Border Patrol gets overwhelmed, that's when the fentanyl comes across the border to kill 250,000 Americans. That's when sex trafficking goes up 600%. That's when the numbers of known suspected terrorists cross the border when the Border Patrol gets overwhelmed. If you're in this country illegally, you got a problem. It's not okay to enter this country illegally. It is a crime.
Fair enough. So you're not just going after hardened criminals and worse.
Well, absolutely. That is our priority.
Not just.
That is our priority, but that doesn't mean everybody else is off the table. If we run into somebody's not a priority, we will enforce the immigration law. Name another federal agency or another law enforcement agency that we tell them don't enforce the law. It's just ICE. We're going to enforce the law. We're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. If Congress is going to enact laws that they don't want to enforce, then I can think about better things for them to be doing. Look, people need to understand illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. People say, well, coming here for a better life. I get that. But when you cause a crisis as big as the Biden administration did, that overwhelms the border to where 70% of agents pulled off the line, that's when all the bad stuff happened. I've been doing this for 34 years. People don't understand what happens to these people. There's been studies done that 31% of women that make that journey through the cartels get sexually assaulted. They get raped. Not once, but numerous times. Children die in that border every day. While you and I are talking right now, women are being raped by the cartels as part of the requirement to cross this border. A child will die on the border today. And we're simply, a secure border saves lives, and that's what we're doing.
Tom, let me ask you about that. Actually, two things. I want to ask you about the cartels, and I do want to ask you about the trafficking. In your memoir, and I took note of this, you describe one of the most devastating moments in your career. You say in your book that you saw the back of a truck filled with dead bodies of those being trafficked. Are you worried at all that this mission could actually lead to the deportation of trafficking victims or even cause those who are being exploited to not report it?
No. I think we made it clear if you're a victim of trafficking, there's actually benefits to be given to you. As I just said, worksite enforcement operators, one of the main reasons we're doing it to find victims of trafficking because they need a lot of help from the U.S. government. So no, this is about prioritizing the worst of the worst. This is about arresting public safety threats and national security threats. However, we got 1.4 million illegal aliens in this country who had due process at great taxpayer expense. They've been ordered removed by a federal judge. We have to, and if those orders don't mean anything, if we go through this whole process, okay, you want to claim asylum? You got that right. You want to see a judge? You got that right. We'll make that happen. But at the end of that due process, if a federal judge says you must leave, if we don't make them leave and execute the orders, then what the hell are we doing? Just shut down the immigration court. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Take the border patrol off the border because there's no consequences. We have to enforce the law. That is what's required.
So let me ask you about the cartels. They've made a clear warning to you and to the United States that, we're going to escalate our violence. So now we're seeing not only Mexican troops after this deal that Trump made with Mexico's president, and also U.S. troops headed to the border. How are you going to utilize the military? We know what the military can and can't do domestically, but in a scenario like this, how do you plan on using the military? Could they get involved in the violence if the cartels strike?
Yes, and we expect them to. But the Mexican military, President Trump was able to get Mexico to put military on their northern border. That will certainly help. I think the cartels would be foolish to take on the military, but we know they've taken on the Mexican military before. But now we have the United States military on the border. We got the men and women of the Border Patrol. Do I expect violence to escalate? Absolutely, because the cartels are making record amounts of money. They're making record amount of money in alien smuggling and trafficking of women and children and drugs. However, as we secure the border, we've gone long ways to securing the border. Crossings are down like 76%. We're taking money out of their pocket. They're not going to wait quietly, and that's why President Trump designated them terrorist organizations. I would send a warning to them. You heard a border patrol agent, you heard a soldier. The wrath of President Trump's going to come down.
Does that mean the military, our troops, U.S. military at the border with weapons, using weapons if need be?
They need to protect themselves. But the cartels, again, let me give the cartels a warning. If you harm a border patrol agent or a soldier, the whole world's going to come down to you. President Trump is a strong president. He is strong enough, and he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth. Now, that's the reason they were called terrorist organizations, designated terrorist organizations, because they've killed more Americans with their fentanyl, their drugs, than any terrorist organization in the world. They are now designated terrorists. Do not harm our troops, or President Trump will bring hell rain down, and he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth. They can claim they're a pretty tough organization, the cartels, and they are, but they're not stronger than the power of President Trump.
Tom, let me ask you, you've been doing this since 1984 in law enforcement on the border. Over that period of time, we've seen this dramatic shift in the attitude of Americans about immigration. Polls show, when President Reagan was president, we had a very welcoming attitude about immigrants. Polls show most Americans wanted more immigrants. Now, we've seen this very dramatic shift. What do you think of that, and what do you think caused it?
I think the American people have been educated, especially the last 4 years, when they saw images of 11,000 people enter this country and getting released. I mean, the federal law is clear. If you come to our borders without proper documentation, entry documents, the law says you shall be detained. Shall. Not maybe, not think about it. But what American people have seen the last 4 years, you cross the country illegally, you get released within 24 hours. You get a free plane ticket to the city of your choice. You get put in a free hotel room. You get 3 square meals a day. You get free medical attention. And in about 90, 120 days, we're going to give you work authorization, which is the real reason they came here. They're not coming here escaping fear and persecution. When you send that message to the whole world, they're going to come to the greatest nation on earth. I think people are realizing. So when you overwhelm the border patrol, that's the message I keep pushing. It's not just innocent illegal immigration. When you overwhelm the border patrol and take them out of their national security job because you're making sandwiches, changing diapers, making airport runs, doing all this humanitarian stuff which they need to do, that's when the fentanyl came across, killed 250,000 Americans. That's when sex trafficking happens. When they create the gaps in the cartels knows this. So cartel knows, okay, the border patrol's overwhelmed. Now let's send a group of 100 family units to this area. So with the 30% left on the border, we'll seize that opportunity. Now we create gaps. Now we can run the gang members and those carrying fentanyl and those sex and trafficking women. They got a wide open area now. This is the unsecure overwhelming of the border has created all these other bad things to happen. And I think Americans are being educated on that. They understand it isn't just illegal immigration anymore. There's a whole ugly underbelly. I'll say it again. Women get sexually assaulted. While we're talking right now, they're being sexually assaulted. Secure border saves lives. Let me add this. When President Trump had illegal immigration down 90%, when 90% less people were coming, how many women were being raped? How many children didn't die crossing the border? How many Americans didn't die from fentanyl overdoses because the border was locked down? How many no-inspected terrorists didn't make in the country? How many women and children weren't sex trafficked? Secure border saves lives.
You clearly, you make it very clear that you are all about taking down evil, getting rid of evil, and kids getting trafficked. You've seen it firsthand. But, at the same time, you're talking about deporting families back to dangerous countries. How do you square that?
Deporting back to dangerous country. What country is dangerous?
Well, it's all the countries that they're fleeing from. Venezuela.
There's a difference between fleeing violence and fleeing persecution.
Haiti, Venezuela, Haiti, which can't even it's run by gangs. Afghanistan. The countries that are dangerous. It's why they come to this country.
Let's talk. So they come to the border and make an asylum claim. People need to understand, what is asylum? Asylum is you're escaping fear and persecution from your home government because of race, religion, political affiliation, or participation in a specific social group.
We're seeing that.
So when you come to the border and make a fraudulent asylum claim, because I've never seen victims of persecution carrying the flags of their home country to the border, which we've seen. We've seen during the Biden administration they're wearing a Biden t-shirt because President Biden opened the border up. While we're dealing with millions of people making a fraudulent asylum claim because they're really not escaping fear and persecution from the home government because of race, religion, political Christian, The ones that are, that's a problem. When you get millions of people making fraudulent claims, those in the world that really do need our help, because they really are escaping fear and persecution.
So how do you help
they're sitting
them?
in the back seat.
How do you help them?
Because they're overwhelmed the system.
How can you get asylum then? Let's just go by the book here, by what you just outlined. How can someone get asylum?
What you don't do to claim asylum is enter the country legally. You go to the port of entry, make an asylum claim. And I read the media outlets, well, that's what the CBP One. That CBP One app was
They shut down the app.
And they should have. It was abuse. If you look at the system, even they admit about 90% of the applicants weren't properly vetted. The asylum claim has to be done by case-by-case basis based on the merits of the specific case. None of that was done. When the president stands at the White House podium and says, I'm bringing 30,000 a month in from Haiti, Venezuela, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, CHNV, Cuba,
Okay.
Nicaragua, Haiti, Venezuela. When he said, I'm bringing 30,000 a month, where did that number come from? Where's the case-by-case analysis? Where's the specific? No, they've abused the asylum process. And if you look at what's happened, a lot of fraud occurred. People didn't really qualify for asylum. But while we're busy dealing with this asylum fraud, there are people that really do have the need to be protected, and they're sitting in the back seat because they've overwhelmed the system.
Can I ask about the temporary protected status? The Venezuelans will lose that and now be deported. I was in Springfield, Ohio, a couple of times during the course of the campaign. In that Haitian community where President Trump said they were eating cats and dogs, and there was no evidence of that. They have settled in that community, and it has accepted them. They're performing important tasks. That community is growing. It was flat on its back. Are they the next ones? Will everybody who had temporary protective status lose it?
Well, if the Secretary of Homeland Security makes the decision to end TPS, then yeah, they'll have to be removed.
And how do you...
But the TPS, people's temporary protective status, it's never temporary.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the last time a TPS was canceled. But when the condition of the country changes, then that TPS is taken away.
You think that's going to happen for the Haitians and the others who are here under that?
If they lose TPS, then they no longer have the authority to be here. They absolutely.
Well, how about the Dreamers?
Dreamers is something that the White House and President Trump are working on. But let's remember, his first administration, he had a plan for the Dreamers. What happened? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer didn't accept it. Why? Because there was money for the border wall. So President Trump understands the Dreamer situation, and he'll be coming up with some policies in the near future to address the Dreamers. But he tried once, and he was shut down.
One more question. What would you say to some of these families, whether this man who's been here 24 years, some of the Haitians I met, contributing, they thought, to a country that they now love, and you're going to pull them out? I mean, it's an emotional question. Some of their neighbors will be emotional. I'm not advocating for them, but I just wonder about your personal reaction to the human side of this, to the pain.
Immigration enforcement is emotional. I get it. It's always been emotional, always been controversial. But we're a nation of laws. If we want to send a message, which I think you're asking, enter the country legally, it's a crime. Show up in court, don't show up in court, get ordered removal. But if you hide out long enough, get yourself a job, have some U.S. citizen kids, now you're immune. You're immune from our laws. If that's the message we want to send the rest of the world, you're never going to fix this issue. Coming to this country illegally is a crime. If I was in Switzerland illegally, I wouldn't feel comfortable, and they shouldn't feel comfortable. They're in a country illegally. Many have been ordered removed by a federal judge after due process. They simply ignored the judge's order. It's not okay. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by a president. There's a reason we do this. It's a matter of national security. You can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. So there needs to be consequences for entering our country illegally. We have millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing their background investigations, doing everything they can to come to the greatest country on earth the right way. They're all sitting in the back seat. While millions of people are crossing the border illegally, and being taken care of by the Biden administration. No, we're going to force the law. We're going to set the system straight.
Tom Homan, we appreciate your time. I hope you'll come back.
You got it.
Thanks very much.
Deal.
Well, I have to agree with Tom Homan on his stance. I do believe that the country and our laws, we need to present a front that our laws are to be upheld. You can't just come here and do what you want and think that we're going to allow you to remain here. If we were to continue to do that, other countries would then see us as weak and that we are not even strong enough to uphold our own laws. So I totally agree with his stance that no matter who you are, where you come from, and what your reasoning is, there's still a proper protocol on in which how you enter our country. So we're going to go over this article a little bit as well. And it's saying here, border czar Tom Homan said President Donald Trump won't hesitate to use the U.S. military if Mexican cartels target American troops on the southern border. I think the cartels would be foolish to take on the military, but we know they've taken on the Mexican military before. But now we have the United States military, he told ABC News Live on Thursday. Do I expect violence to escalate? Absolutely, because the cartels are making records amount of monies. Homan said, going on to say that they continue to secure the border. We're taking money out of their pockets. Homan said the troops need to protect themselves and that he would send a warning to the cartels if any U.S. soldiers are harmed. The wrath of President Trump's going to come down on them. He has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth, he said. On his first day in office, Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, allowing the Department of Defense to deploy armed forces to the region. He also signed an executive order to designate drug cartels and other criminal organizations as foreign terrorist organizations, or specifically designated global terrorists. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has also been conducting raids across the nation to round up undocumented migrants for deportation as part of the Trump administration's hardline immigration policies. The administration has said the first priority in these raids is to target violent criminals. About 3/4, 76%, of the 14,000 migrants who have been arrested so far are criminals, Homan told ABC News Live on Thursday. Where do the collaterals come? The collateral arrests happen when we're looking for the bad guy and we find others with them, he said. Homan said he doesn't have a daily quota on arrest of undocumented migrants, saying, I want to arrest as many as we can. If you're in this country illegally, you're not off the table, but you're not going to be a priority, he said. Asked how the administration contends with deporting families back to dangerous countries, Homan responded, what country is dangerous? Many migrants entering the U.S. come from countries such as Haiti and Venezuela, which have the strictest do not travel warnings from the State Department due to violence. People need to understand what is asylum. Asylum is you're escaping fear and persecution from your home government because of race, religion, political affiliations, and participation in a specific social group, he said. Homan argued there are many fraudulent asylum claims that have overwhelmed the system and legitimate asylum seekers are sitting in the back seat. What don't do to claim asylum is enter the country illegally, he said. You go to a port of entry. Again, I say I agree with him. We cannot allow people to just come in any way, shape, or form and not follow the rules that we have set accordingly for anyone that's coming in. That is a slap in the face to those who have gone the proper route to get their asylum or to just get their citizenship, whatever it is that they were seeking at that time. So I definitely agree that there needs to be some type of cleanup of this situation, which in this case is to round them up and send them back, and then hopefully they will come back in the proper fashion, and from there we'll see what happens. I'll also be looking at another article that's coming out about this as well. Here was some additional information that I also found in regards to what's going on with the cartels and the southern border. Let's check out this video here.
Drones in action. Drug cartels using the sophisticated and dangerous drones against each other. Our Allie Bradley, the first to break this story. She joins us live from Del Rio, Texas with an exclusive look. Allie, before I toss it over to you, I should note the president and the prime minister any moment now. When that happens, we'll dip in. But this video that you got, a News Nation exclusive tonight.
Yeah, so Blake, down here, the energy, we've talked about the morale shifting a lot, but now the energy is shifting to this kind of like heightened alert for law enforcement down here following the authorization of those weaponized drones. And full disclosure, I've been covering this for nearly 4 years. Never really felt unsafe that I needed protective gear. And yeah, now I've got a bulletproof vest down here for me and my team because we don't know what we're going to encounter. We don't know how the cartel is going to be operating. So check out this video that we were able to obtain through our sources that shows these bomb-wielding drones in action. So this drone literally goes over top of these vehicles. It's a convoy of vehicles you can see right there. And you can quite literally see a bomb drop from this drone and actually make contact down there. And what we've learned here is they believe that this is cartel on cartel fighting there. And that's what the concern is, that fighting is going to spill over into the United States. Blake, right now, they're not able to make that $13 billion they were making by moving people into the country illegally because those numbers have plummeted, a 75% decrease down here at the border. So how are they making money? So they're operating in these unprecedented ways like what we're seeing right there on the screen. It's just a couple hours south from where we're standing here. And then you consider what happened in August. We actually reported that on the other side of Arizona, they had bomb-wielding drones over there, but they weren't necessarily threatening agencies on this side, Blake. So they're looking at, head on a swivel right now, continuing to pray for the agents and officers down here because we don't know what we're going to see down here, Blake.
Wow, our Allie Bradley.
Wow, this is really causing a ruckus. Donald Trump is coming in and causing some chaos in the southern border, but that's not on him. Let's check out this video.
And News Nation obtaining some new video which shows these drones in action. And it comes amid escalating threats of violence against Border Patrol and U.S. law enforcement. Correspondent Allie Bradley live for us at the border in Del Rio, Texas. So, Allie, what is the mood like where you are?
Yeah, hey, Nicole. So to be fully honest here, the energy is a little bit unsettled down at the border lately. Those threats are actually ramping up that energy down here. And I want to be fully honest with our viewers because I've been down here for nearly 4 years and not once was I really concerned for my safety. But I actually just got protective gear from our network because things are getting a little unprecedented down here. The cartel is operating in ways that we have not seen before. They're desperate. They're a $13 billion a year industry moving people in the country. And we got new numbers showing the encounter numbers have plummeted. So they're not able to make that money. So they're getting desperate. So we got our hands on some video that shows these drones, these weaponized drones that the cartel is now threatening U.S. Border Patrol and U.S. law enforcement with. That video showing the cartel quite literally dropping a bomb on what is believed to be a rival cartel down there. You see that bomb literally explode, being dropped from a drone. This almost looks like a video game, watching this really play out in action. Now, right now, we believe this is a cartel on cartel situation that is about 4 hours south of the Rio Grande Valley on the Mexico side of things. Some reporting claim that these might be Mexican government officials involved in this too, but we have not seen any casualties reported out of the Mexican side of their government. But it is a very clear example of the real threats that are just across the U.S. southern border. So agents right now are telling me that, yeah, they've always faced threats from Mexico, but the violence is escalating with these bomb-wielding drones, and the agency is taking it seriously enough to prompt these warnings about them. Now, we did report last week about these weaponized drones after an alert went out in the Rio Grande Valley sector here in Texas. That reporting prompted this, what you're looking at right now. That memo went out agency-wide following our reports. And Texas DPS Lieutenant Chris Oliveras told Blake Berman on the Hill that this latest warning really shows what these criminal organizations have access to.
Now with these drones that have the capabilities of actually dropping explosives, it really shows how much more these cartels have evolved, and the threat level has increased even more so now. It's not just between rival cartels and the military in Mexico, it's also threats against law enforcement. Anytime there's a credible source or credible threat made towards law enforcement from the cartels, we take that very serious, especially when we talk about weaponized drones, how close that we work so close to the border and the close proximity to these cartels, and how we actually come across these cartels on a daily basis by working so close to the border. It's a really volatile situation.
Now, Nicole, this all comes as we actually reported back in August on the other side of Arizona, the Sinaloa cartel was battling using these weaponized drones against each other. Now, of course, it wasn't spilling over to the U.S. side, but cause for concern for sure. Now, when I talk to agents, they say at this point, Nicole, they need the military to come in and really be a force here against Mexico and against these cartel members in order to get a hold on this. Of course, this comes as there were reports that a U.S. plane went into Mexican airspace after Pete Hegseth, the new Department of Defense Secretary, was down there, saying all options are on the table in combating the cartel, Nicole.
Absolutely. Well, Allie, please stay safe down there. All right, Allie. Thank you.
Okay, this is the last article that I found where it's indicating that Mexico deploys the first National Guard troops to U.S. border after tariff threat. Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. A line of Mexican National Guard and Army trucks rumbled along the border separating Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas, on Wednesday, among the first of 10,000 troops Mexico has sent to its northern frontier following tariff threats by President Donald Trump. Masked and armed National Guard members picked through brush running along the border barrier on the outskirts of Ciudad Juarez, pulling out makeshift ladders and ropes tucked away in the trenches and pulling them onto trucks. Patrols were also seen on other parts of the border near Tijuana. It comes after a turbulent week along the border after Trump announced he would delay imposing crippling tariffs on Mexico for at least a month. In exchange, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum promised she would send the country's National Guard to reinforce the border and crack down on fentanyl smuggling. Trump has declared an emergency on the border despite migration levels and fentanyl overdoses significantly dipping over the past year. The U.S. said it would in turn do more to stop American guns from being trafficked into Mexico to fuel cartel violence, which has rippled to other parts of the country as criminal groups fight to control the lucrative migrant smuggling industry. On Tuesday, the first of those forces arrived in border cities, climbing out of government planes. Guard members in the Wednesday patrol confirmed that they were part of the new force. There will be permanent surveillance on the border, Jose Luis Santos Iza, one of the National Guard leaders heading off the deployment in the city, told media upon the arrival of the first set of soldiers. This operation is primarily to prevent drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, mainly fentanyl. At least 1,650 troops were expected to be sent to Ciudad Juarez, according to government figures, making it one of the biggest receivers of border reinforcements in the country, second only to Tijuana, where 1,949 are slated to be sent. During the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's trip through Latin America, where migration was at the top of the agenda, the top American diplomat thanked the Mexican government for the forces, according to a statement by the Mexican government. The negotiation by Sheinbaum was viewed by observers as a bit of shrewd political maneuvering by the newly elected Mexican leader. Many had previously cast doubt that she'd be able to navigate Trump's presidency as effectively as her predecessor and ally, former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Well, that's just a little bit of information at this time to give you guys some info on what is going on at the border. Hopefully this has been helpful to you all. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.